Okay, Chevre. Um, Today we are going to use a video for the first time to review a Mishnah that we learned together in class. We're looking at Masechet Berakhot, the tractate Berakhot about blessings, and we're looking at Perek Chamishi, the fifth Perek, also called Perek Hey, Mishnah Aleph, the very first Mishnah in the Perek. Let's begin by reading through the entire Mishnah. Read it slowly with me so you can get a sense of how the words sound and how it feels. Ein omdin lehit palel, ella mitoch koved rosh. Chasidim harishonim hayu shohim sha'a achat umitpalelim. Kedei sheikavenu et libam lemakom. Afilu hamelech shoel bishlomo lo yeshivenu. Ve'afilu nachash karoch al akevo lo yafsik. All right. To begin, we're going to look just at the very first line of the Mishnah. Let's look and see if we can identify any words that we recognize as verbs. The first word that we see that's a verb is omdin. It means standing or stand. The word omdin, we would be used to seeing it as omdim, with a mem sofi, with a final mem. But in Mishnaic Hebrew, often the mem is switched with a nun at the end when we're talking about a plural verb. The second verb that we see is lehit palel. Lehit palel should look familiar, or should at least sound familiar, because it comes from the same root as the word tefillah. And the word lehit palel means to pray. Since it begins with a lamed, we know it's an infinitive verb, meaning that it means to do something. It's important that we recognize that when the Mishnah talks about tefillah, it's not talking about tefillah in general. It's not talking about prayer in general. Rather, it's referring specifically to the Amidah, the Shmona Esrei. In our special terminology section of our packet, we defined omdin lehit palel as to stand to recite the Amidah. Okay, what other words do we recognize here in our Mishnah? Ein means not, or there is no, or in this case, we do not. Ele means except, as in I like all of these things except for that one. Koved rosh is another phrase that we see in our special terminology section of our workbook, or of our packet. It could mean a weighty head, but what it's really saying here is great respect or seriousness of purpose. All right, now that we know the vocabulary for that section, let's try to read the whole line there and translate it. Ein omdin lehit palel. We do not stand to recite the Amidah. Ella mitoch koved rosh. Except for with a great respect and seriousness. Let's look at the next piece here. The Chasidim Harishonim are the early pious ones. Chasidim here does not refer to Chasidim the way we talk about them today. They didn't exist at this time, but it's just talking about pious people, and Rishonim means the early ones. They were very religious people who lived in ancient times, and they're generally viewed as having been extremely devoted to God and Jewish practices. Shohim is a verb construct. Hayu shohim is a verb construct where the hayu indicates that something was happening in the past. For example, I could say ani achalti, meaning that I ate, or I could say hayiti ochel, I was eating. It's in the passive voice. Here, hayu shohim means they would wait quietly in order to get in the mood. Shohim is one of our special terminology words for this Mishnah. Sha'a achat, we should recognize, that means 1 hour. And umit palelim comes from that same root that we saw above, meaning they would pray. So let's put it all together and translate this second line. Chasidim harishonim, the early pious ones, hayu shohim sha'a achat, they would wait quietly for 1 hour, umit palalim, and then they would pray. Why would the early pious ones, these Chasidim Harishonim, why would they wait for an hour before they recited the Amidah, before they recited the Shmona Esrei every day, 3 times per day? Let's see if the Mishnah explains why. Our very first word here in the third line, kedei, means in order to. So we know that the Mishnah is about to give us a reason for what we just read. Sheikavenu et libam is again one of our phrases from the special terminology section of the Mishnah packet. And it means to have proper intent. Literally, it means that they would focus their hearts. Libam, it's plural for, or it means their hearts. Lev is heart. La makom is also from our special terminology, and it means to God. In our Bereshit class, we learned that God has many different names in Judaism, each representing a different aspect of God. Hamakom refers to the ever-present aspect of God, or the omnipresent aspect of God. So let's put this whole third line together. Kedei sheyikavenu et libam, in order to have the proper intent lamakom, toward God. So the early pious ones would wait quietly for 1 hour and then pray in order to have this proper intent toward God, this proper focus on God whenever they would say the Shmona Esrei, the Amidah. All right, in our next line here, we begin with afilu hamelech. These 2 words should look familiar. Afilu means even, in the sense of even though. Hamelech is the king. Shoel bishlomo is again a phrase from our special terminology section. It means greets him. Literally, it means that a person would shoel, ask about someone's shalom, peace, to ask after their peace, to greet them. Lo yeshivenu means that one does not answer him. Yeshivenu is another word from our special terminology. So let's put this all together. Afilu hamelech shoel bishlomo. Even if a king greets a person, lo yeshivenu, that person does not respond to the king. If a person is in the middle of reciting the Amidah, the Shmona Esrei, even if a king walks by and greets them, asks them a question, says, "How are you doing?" the person doesn't respond. All right, let's look at the next line. Again, we see the word afilu, this time with an and before it, va'afilu, which we by now recognize. It means even. A nachash is a snake. Karuch al akevo. For this phrase, we should again look to our special terminology, which tells us that it means wrapped around his foot. Lo yafsik means that one does not interrupt or stop. A hafsakah, from that same shoresh, is an interruption in our prayer. For example, a forbidden interruption in the middle of the Shema when we're not allowed to stop is called a hafsakah. So let's put that all together. Va'afilu nachash karoch al akevo. Even if a snake is wrapped around a person's foot, Lo yafsik. You don't interrupt the recitation of the Amidah. You continue reciting the Amidah. So that's all for that Mishnah, Mishnah Aleph, from the fifth Perek of Masechet Berakhot. I hope that helped you understand it a little bit more and understand the translation a bit more. You can rewind this video, go back to the beginning, and watch it as many times as you need in order to feel confident about it for our quizzes, our tests, and our class discussions.